Hello, film nerds, and welcome back to Blockbuster Card. This is still a new show. We are not even at 10 episodes yet from Osiris Media and Library Card Productions. Here at Blockbuster Card, we dive deep into the world of movies more than ever to discuss characters, cinematography, editing, and the role of the director to better understand the films that we watch and the world around us. My name is Brian Brinkman. I am joined, as always, I say with an asterisk because not as always, but as always today, Megan and RJ. These are two people who, when pulled over by the cops and asked how many drinks they've had, always reply with a few small beers. Megan and RJ, how are we doing today?
I'm doing great.
Good. Very
Great.
good.
Good. Great and good. Can you
Yep.
expand? Can we hear anything more? Just a great
Nope.
Well,
and good?
I did
This
get
isn't
to
a Zoom
see.
call, guys.
I did get to see this movie again last night. I got to go. I was up in the mountains, and we were supposed to go to Six Flags to do Fright Fest, which is a really scary thing that my kids usually do without me. But they begged me to go this year, and I was going to go, but we got rained out. So I was like, what about the movies, everybody? And took a little convincing, but we went to the movies, and I brought my husband and my daughter to see one battle after another. So I got to see it a second time last night, which was great. And it's even funnier the second time. Spoiler.
Even funnier when you know that it's supposed to be funny going in.
Yes.
I think that is part of what we're going to dive into here.
Mhm.
RJ, want to expand any thoughts on how you're doing here? I know I just got you after a mouthful of cashews, but how's it going?
It's going
At least
great.
it's
My
not a
last,
peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
my last, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My last 6 movies have been PTA movies, including this twice. So it's been interesting.
You're prepped.
I'm prepped,
We
including
are
2
living
today.
including two today. What are you doing
Yeah.
today?
Well, I
Wow.
finished Inherent Vice, which I started last week, which took me too long to finish, and then I watched Punch Drunk Love today.
We are living in the world that PTA has made. He only has 10 movies, so it's relatively easy to get caught up around these releases. He only releases movies every kind of 3 or 4 years, if not longer gaps in there. And so yeah, we are all living in PTA's world. I've been watching a ton of PTA here today. And for our seventh episode of
Me too.
Blockbuster Card, as we have already let you guys know, we are discussing Paul Thomas Anderson's 10th film, the film of 2025, and perhaps the 2020s as a whole. We will debate that one battle after another. This is a film that explores what it means to be a revolutionary and a parent, how much we must overcome to live in peace in our own lives while the world quakes around us, and whether or not that corner office is worth sacrificing everything for. This film has taken over our brains and our lives as we continue to exist in 2025 America while gaining perspective through film and films like this. You both have seen this movie twice. I am still on my first go around, though as of time of recording, I am planning to see it tomorrow afternoon. I know I was blown away in the theater and am still thinking about it today, and I'm very excited to chat about this throughout today's episode. But before we do this, it's proper only in the podcast world. We need more preamble. Television, they've got to get to the commercials so they get you through as quickly as possible. For us, we just need more preamble before we get to the discussion. So, Megan, I'm going to turn to you. You've watched a lot of movies of late. What is the last great, all caps, great film you saw?
Well, I have been watching a lot of PTA too. I tried to watch almost all of his films leading up to this, but I want to talk about something different today, but related. The last great movie I saw was The Wolf of Wall Street, 2013, Martin Scorsese masterpiece. I think Jordan Belfort is one of the best performances of Leo's entire career. The scene at the country club and his physicality on those stairs is Carol Burnett, Gilda Radner level physical comedy. And that to me is Oscar worthy acting if I've ever seen it. I know he didn't win for that, but he did win the Golden Globe. But that entire movie is just a wild romp that never lets up for a second. It's breathless. It's so in your face. This is the peak of the pre-Me Too era. This is Trump's good old boy America. This is Epstein's paradise. This is a part of us, and we have to look at it. And I've seen this movie probably 5 or 6 times. I absolutely love it every time. I laugh so hard. I think it's just a perfect example of the kind of roles that Leonardo DiCaprio was made for, despite his beautiful face. He's just his best when he's messy. And I absolutely love him in this movie. So that's what I watched recently again, and it did not disappoint.
He lost the Best Actor role to Matthew McConaughey in Dallas Buyers Club. He was competing against Christian Bale in American Hustle, Bruce Dern in Nebraska, and Chiwetel Ejiofor in 12 Years a Slave. I've seen all of those. I think Leo
Yeah.
10, 12 years later should have won that award. The McConaughey performance is really stunning. But I think that you give him the Emmy for True Detective and call it a day at that point in time. Because I agree with you. That Leo performance is really kind of, there was throughout the 2000s, there was this like, he's going to be the next one. He's going to be the next one. He's going to be the next one. He made some great movies. The Departed was excellent. The Aviator, he was fantastic. And he obviously made a big splash with Inception and what was his other Scorsese movie that he did? Shutter Island was fantastic. His performance was really gritty and weird in that. But since 2013, you get Wolf of Wall Street, you get The Revenant, you get Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Killers of the Flower Moon, and then today, One Battle After Another. I think that he's reached really, really new heights, and the decisions he makes, the roles he takes. What was that Netflix movie that he made about climate change? I'm blanking on
Don't
it.
Look Up.
Don't Look Up. That notwithstanding, everything else has been a 5-star masterpiece. RJ, what's the last great movie you saw?
Well, I saw One Battle After Another in theater, which we'll talk about. So that's up there. I thought Punch Drunk Love was awesome. I think it's a great movie. Maybe most importantly because it's short, and that's just so great. Like within an hour and a half, you got a good arc, you got good acting. It's fun. It's like it's good. It's a good movie. That's what I got.
Well, this is an interesting. This is an interesting. We might have to hash it out because this is an interesting meeting of the guards here for this podcast. I don't think we've ever had a last great movie you saw and multiple people have the same one. Because as I look through my list, perhaps it's I haven't watched as many movies in the last 10 days as I typically would like to. But Punch Drunk Love is the movie. I rewatched this. I've seen this probably 5 times now. I remember watching it when it came out. I believe that this was my first PTA movie I ever watched. And then I've gone back to it at various points in my life. The shortness, which runs counter to pretty much everything that PTA does. Every one of his movies is at least 2.5 hours, if not longer. The single character focus, really. I mean, obviously we have some supporting characters within this movie, but this is Adam Sandler and Elizabeth Olsen. Is that her name? Why am I blanking on the lead actress in Punch Drunk Love? Give me 1 second while I consult Letterboxd. My goodness, Emily Watson, of course. She's beautiful, lovely, amazing British actress who does such a great job in this movie. Philip Seymour Hoffman's in this, the Parade of Sisters. RJ, what is it about that movie that you connect with, that you like, besides the how quickly it goes by?
It's really just I think that I noticed a lot of like similarities in terms of scoring and sound that I think carries a quick movie like that really well. Like it keeps it going. I mean, the romance is maybe slightly less convincing than it could be, like it's sort of fast. But I find it to be authentic. I like the fact that there's like a kind of not mystery, but there's like a little bit of a chase kind of situation intertwined in the 90 minutes of him kind of going back to try to find this woman in Hawaii and then coming back. I don't know. I just thought it was like an hour and a half well spent, good sound, kept it moving, and it was like I was never like, oh, I wish this was. I never like lost interest, which for me is saying something.
That's fair. I mean, that takes a lot. There's a lot of times we watch movies and we're like, I'm just not feeling this anymore, but I have to sit here for the next 2.5 hours. Here's looking at you, 8.5.
How dare you? The
We'll
masterpiece.
resolve that at some point. I I agree with everything you just said. I love the use of the color blue in this movie and all the color palettes that he uses to really kind of accentuate this kind of dream world, nightmarish dream world that Adam Sandler's character has found himself in. I think that if you can get over the fact that the entire love story is totally unrealistic for so many reasons and is literally just there as like a symbolism of what could be if this guy, somehow met the right person in the right circumstance. It's a really good exploration of like what it means to be a modern man in the 21st century, because I think everyone has felt that sense of like ambition and also organization and focus and drive, that Adam Sandler's character has, but also feeling completely pathetic and in over your head. And um, the entire, like everyone in your circle is coming down on you for a variety of reasons. And you're just looking for one bright spot. And he finds it in this extremely kind, empathetic, loving woman who I don't know really what she's attracted to, but
Yeah.
she's very attracted. And that sense of like, okay, what does it mean to be a man today, and hold all these things yourself while also continuing to um, you know inspire someone else to want to spend significant amount of time with you, is a really touching, loving story. And I love the fact that he's able to do it in 90 minutes. It's really exciting.
Yeah, that's probably my least favorite PTA. I just, I think it rubs up against that. I have sort of problem with movies where everything goes wrong for the lead, and it just becomes like this cycle of just things that just keep going wrong, and they get so frustrated. It's like reminds me of Ari Aster's like Beau is Afraid, where it's just they're so deep in what's going wrong, and it just starts to feel so frustrating to me. But I also just it's a complete misuse of Emily Watson. She's one of the best actors of her generation, and I just feel like she's not doing anything in this movie. And I don't buy their relationship, and I feel like Adam Sandler's fairly limited. I don't know. It's just not my favorite. I think he can do so much more, Paul Thomas Anderson, obviously. And when you see a movie as layered as the one we're going to talk about today, it kind of makes that movie seem a little bit less too to me.
It's an interesting part of his overall story, I think, because he's coming off of Magnolia, where he says everything and
Mm,
does everything and really beats you over the head with the Paul Thomas Andersonisms of, we're all connected in some ways, but also don't really know that we are. And the world may be ending at every stage of when these stories are being told. And that's kind of part of the reason why people are coming together. And it's wild to think that he makes Boogie Nights 97, Magnolia 99, takes a break, Punch Drunk Love 2002, and then nothing until 2007's There Will Be Blood. It's really where he starts to set the foundation that like a Paul Thomas Anderson movie is going to be an event, and it's going to take over your cinema for a good 2 to 3 month period in time. Even if he's making something as small as Punch Drunk Love, Inherent Vice, Licorice Pizza. It is funny though, and I've done a full rewatch. I've still got Blood and Phantom Thread to go. I've been just watching everything out of order. But on my most recent rewatch, my least favorite was The Master, which used to be one of my favorites. So I feel like Paul Thomas Anderson movies are always in flux. You're always finding something new that you appreciate, while also something that kind of annoys you and pisses you off. And that's part of the point. And that is a very good way to get here into this movie, which is one battle after another. And I want to do this conversation. I haven't prepped my co-hosts here for this, so I hope you
no
guys are
boy.
ready. I want to do this slightly differently than when we've done previous episodes. What we've done in the past is we give you a film synopsis, a big breakdown of this movie, and then we kind of walk through larger themes. I want to work the film synopsis and the thematic conversation here, because I think if we take this movie as it unfurls on the screen, it's going to help us to talk a little bit more about it. 15 minutes in, warning here. If you have not seen One Battle After Another, I would definitely encourage you to turn this podcast off, go see it, and then come back and listen to us, because this is just a movie that is going to be that much more special the first time when you discover what he's saying. And then, like Megan said at the top here, the movie is somehow even better and even funnier the second time. I haven't seen it the second time, so I can't vouch for that entirely. But I imagine, knowing what I know now going in, I will enjoy it much more. And the surprise element of how he's telling this story was much better the first time without that knowledge. So One Battle After Another, this is a 2025 action thriller, which is something I never thought we would hear about a Paul Thomas Anderson movie. This is written, produced, and directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, inspired by the 1990 novel Vineland by Thomas Pynchon, PTA's second time working with Pynchon material. This stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Sean Penn, Benicio del Toro, Regina Hall, Teyana Taylor, and Chase Infinity, and follows an ex-revolutionary who's forced back into conflict when being pursued by a corrupt military officer. I want to get a sense here before we dive into the thematic element of this movie and kind of a breakdown of it. What were your guys' perceptions going into this, and how were those perceptions of this movie altered when you started watching it and as you've thought about it?
I was pretty excited going in. I have been watching all the Paul Thomas Anderson movies to get ready. I've been watching them out of order too, but just reliving my favorites like Boogie Nights and Phantom Thread and all of these movies that are just so diverse. And I was really curious about this one. I didn't really read much about what it was about before I saw it. I saw it on opening night, and going in, I went to a movie theater that was completely packed in Brooklyn, every seat sold out, and it was absolutely thrilling. It was my favorite movie I've seen in the theaters in as long as I can remember. There have been movies that have shook me really hard in the past few years. I think of like Past Lives, Oppenheimer, Barbie, but nothing has made me think as deeply, as well as giving me that kind of visceral response to characters and their circumstances, and has made me laugh as much. And I think that to me is why this movie is so phenomenal, because of all the layers that it works on. And it inspired me to make bold choices, to like lean into power, to feel hope when you feel hopeless, and to remember that kind of life is what you make it, and these connections are worth hurting for. And also just had this huge undercurrent of like how important women's sexuality is, and embodying that is a choice that feminism had given us. I mean, for me personally, I was so blown away by this movie. And it's amazing because you can view it on a personal level, but then also on a kind of philosophical level. It's this huge political thriller, but then it can immediately drop deeply personal and psychological and become a drama. But it's also erotic, it's also funny, it's also playful, and it also moves really fast. And I just don't know if there's been a movie that operates on that many layers that I've seen in so long. And I think it's kind of, for me, a culmination of everything he's ever done. Because when I was watching all of these other PTA movies, he's looking at internal kind of struggles, he's looking at external struggles, intimacy, sexuality, power, control. But this one sort of has all of that, and it's still funny. It's just, to me, this is definitely my favorite Paul Thomas Anderson movie of all.
The humor is something I want to talk about here in a second, because that's, I think, one of the most shocking elements of this movie, and
Yeah.
of my thoughts of this movie. But RJ, what were your thoughts going into this, and how were they shocked coming out of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the same. Like, I think everyone who goes to see this is excited because there's been so much press. There's been so many interviews. There's been like quite a lot of media around this movie, to say the least. Right. I remember seeing the preview when I went to see Eddington, and I think there's a lot of similarities between this and Eddington. And I think I was without thinking too much about the humor aspect, I was like probably expecting it to be more kind of intense, like Eddington was. Like, Eddington wasn't fun to watch, I don't think. I think it
Yeah.
was like
Yeah.
good
I
in some
agree.
ways, but there's not like, it's like if I saw that a second time, I did watch it a second time with my wife, and I think it was the same thing. It wasn't like, oh, now I see like these lighthearted aspects of it. It's just like an intense movie about an intense thing. So I guess maybe I was expecting that to be more more prominent. But yeah, just coming out of it. I mean, the first time coming out of it as like, Leonardo DiCaprio and Benicio del Toro are both incredible as like just American icons of Hollywood, but then also this new person who has come out of Presumed Innocent, the like Netflix show, and now this movie, who's definitely the second time the main focus as far as I'm concerned in terms of watching it. So it's pretty cool. I think you can watch it as like a as like an action adventure movie, but you can also watch it as like 12 different things, like Megan was saying. So there's a lot of different ways to see this movie, and there's so many different. I think if you saw it 5 times, you'd probably see it in 5 different ways, which is a really hard thing to achieve.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and it's interesting as well with all the press and all the attention around this movie. There was every time I felt like I watched the trailer, I was like, I either know exactly what this movie is about, or I have no idea what this movie is about. Because you'd see these just kind of a woman who is 8 9 months pregnant shooting a machine gun. Leonardo DiCaprio running around with a bathrobe on and those like sunglasses that old people wear, yelling "Viva la Revolution." Like there were these moments that you would see where you're like, okay, I kind of get what he's doing here, and it seems like he's pushing the boundaries. And there's some like absurdism and like imagery that we're going to deal with here, but like aside from knowing that this is based off of a Pynchon novel, there wasn't a ton to go into this that would even root you in. You knew it was modern day, but like, is it our world today or is it some alternative? And so I think going into it, I felt like it's a PTA movie. There's a high probability that I'm going to enjoy some aspects of this movie. Some of the writing is going to most likely be fantastic. The shots are going to be really inventive, and the acting is probably going to be directed in a manner that is very high quality. What I'm going to feel coming out of it, almost immediately, I realized, oh, wait, I can laugh through a lot of this, which is something that you've become accustomed to with these really big, important movie events of the last couple of years. Parasite. There's definitely some humor within Parasite, but Parasite's a very intense movie. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was a huge event movie in summer 2019. Really gets funny with time. I don't think a lot of people were like sitting in the theaters laughing out loud. It moves at such a weird, slow, lethargic pace that it took a lot of time to like wrap your head around. Oppenheimer, this is a really, really accomplished movie. We've talked a lot about this movie in varying ways. I don't think anyone's going to come out and be like, Oppenheimer's got some like really funny banger lines that like just bring the house down. A couple moments here and there, especially if you've seen it a few times, but it's not really there to like elicit laughs. Barbie obviously has a very funny side to it, but also had a lot more depth than I think people were anticipating, which became more of the takeaway. Something like The Zone of Interest, this is like a very intense, heavy, weighty movie. So like to have a movie that's coming out that is both going to tackle some really big themes and some big ideas about our moment, but also make you laugh as many times as this movie did, I don't think was anticipated. And then to Megan's point, you can see this movie, and RJ, you mentioned this in terms of like, Will as being the character to focus on the second time around. There is really like a different way to look at this movie once you've seen it once before that's going to bring open a lot of layers. So I want to talk just quickly about I broke this movie apart into 3 parts, and I want to just kind of dive into each of these elements here as we go through it. So the initial framing of this movie, Ghetto Pat Calhoun and Perfidia Beverly Hills are members of a far left militant group, the French 75. While breaking out detained immigrants from the Otay Mesa Detention Center, Perfidia sexually humiliates the commanding officer, Stephen J. Lockjaw. But you just have to pause. The names in this movie are so incredible.
So funny. So
Just
amazing.
over the top, but like right on point with what he should be saying. Absurd to the point that you're kind of like, okay, like nobody else can get away with that other than PTA, but also like serious enough that they work.
Can I just say something real quick about the pension angle? Because
Yeah, please.
I think what or my takeaway, which is not real at all, but my if I were PTA after making Inherent Vice, I would have been like, how do I take the essence of this movie and make it less kind of dense and complicated in terms of like following the plot and
Yeah.
like I think Inherent Vice had a lot of challenges for me in that sense. So like I think, but the names are something that really stuck throughout, on both.
Amazing names in Inherent Vice too. Yeah, what
Yeah.
the woman's name? What's her name? It's amazing. Yeah,
I mean,
they're so good.
there's so many. The Josh Brolin character, they're just like, it's just, I feel like that to me, including some of the plot points, obviously, but just like that's to having watched them in a row.
Oh yeah,
Um,
Shasta Fay.
Shasta Fay,
Shasta
yeah.
Fay.
But like the Josh Brolin character is just like amazing. The way he's like eating those chocolate covered bananas throughout the movie. I mean, there's so many things that are like funny and ridiculous that you can tell are holdovers. But I think he like learned how to kind of streamline the influence. So sorry, Brian. Go ahead.
Yeah. Clancy Charlock,
Yeah,
Papa Beaverton, Doc Sportello. I
yeah.
mean, these
I
are
mean,
Coy Harlington. They're amazing. Sorry.
yeah.
He talked about this. I just listened to an interview with PTA and Steven Spielberg, where Spielberg is interviewing him, and he talked about how when you are adapting a book, you have to be really rough on a book, and you have to it's hard to take a book that you really love and turn it into a movie because they're two completely different things. And he didn't say this, but my takeaway was that he wasn't as rough on Inherent Vice as he would be perhaps today. But that, and we're going to talk about this, that fusion of kind of absurd names and absurd character kind of ideas around who the person is with the blunt force of authority is such a fascinating takeaway of Inherent Vice and of Josh Brolin's character in that, and of what Lockjaw ultimately does here in One Battle After Another. So Perfidia sexually humiliates Stephen J. Lockjaw, who in turn develops a fascination with her. And fascination is a light way to put that, but we call it a fascination. Pat and Perfidia become lovers as the French 75 carries out attacks on politicians' offices, banks, and the power grid. When Stephen catches Perfidia planting a bomb, he lets her go after she agrees to have sex with him at a motel. And then after Perfidia gives birth to a baby girl, Charlene, Pat is unable to persuade her to settle down and live as a family. She abandons them to continue her revolutionary activities. However, Perfidia is captured at a botched bank robbery, and Stephen arranges for her to avoid prison in exchange for information about the French 75. She enters witness protection as Stephen hunts down her comrades and shoots many of them on sight, forcing the others to go on the run. As Pat and Charlene are forced to live in hiding as Bob and Willa Ferguson, Perfidia escapes Stephen's custody and flees to Mexico. This kind of brings us through the first 45-ish minutes of this movie. And so I want to ask you guys, have you ever seen a movie that starts in this manner? Can you think of anything off the top of your head? Or even if you can't, what did it feel like for you watching this the first time? And then how did that change potentially the second time?
I can't think of any movie offhand. I'll think about it while we're recording, but the beginning of this movie is absolutely jaw-dropping, and that is because of Teyana Taylor. I mean, her performance in this movie, if she's not nominated, to me, it would be shocking. I think that
Criminal,
her
if she's not
criminal,
nominated?
I'd say
Criminal?
criminal.
Okay.
Yes, I'd say criminal. Um, the way that he makes her character is an exaggerated character, right? She uses her sexuality in a really exaggerated way, and she also does things that are extreme, but I think he's able to make a comment that I think women can connect with on so many levels, and that is we have all felt the confusion if you're a mom of motherhood and who you become after you have a child and what you're used for and how other people see you in your world. And as a very ambitious woman, which Perfidia Beverly Hills is massively ambitious, and it is confusing when you become something other than that or how you hold on to that when you're a mother. And I think that by allowing this character to experiencing that in extreme really, to me, does a service for women. And I think Paul Thomas Anderson does a great job in the beginning of this in showing that women are multifaceted and we can make decisions that are hard, and it's easy to judge someone on these decisions. And I think that the beginning of this movie, the way that she drives the movie is so fascinating to me, because then she's out of the movie. And I think to have
Mhm.
a character this strong plays such a pivotal role in jump-starting the movie, and I think that's, to me, the strength of his writing, in that he can have this character that's so strong, and he can have her just deliver the beginning of this movie like a hammer, and then he pulls her out, and the movie continues to be as strong. That was so shocking to me, because I can't think of a movie that's done that and that's had a character that was that powerful and that instrumental in setting the plot, then that removes it. And it works. And I think that was what was the most surprising to me about the beginning of that film.
Yeah, and it's an interesting choice to structure, because I can't think of a movie that's open like the only comparison I can really make is, and it's not the same, but is Goodfellas, in the way that the first 30-ish minutes of Goodfellas are basically a montage about how awesome it is to be in the mafia. And then you
So
reach
good,
the
though.
present. Yeah, you reach the present, the present at that point in time of Ray Liotta enters the scene, Joe Pesci enters the scene as Tommy and Henry, and the movie then kind of like takes off from there. And it was this like slow build up to that point, or quick successive, like, here are the bullet points that you need to know about why this kid joined the mafia and why he was so committed to it. This movie does that in a way in and of itself, where it showcases this subculture of left-wing activists at a point in time. They're set basically during the Great Recession and the Occupy Wall Street movements. Um, as far as I know, they're doing things that most of those movements were not doing, in terms of blowing up power grids and blowing up banks on a regular basis. And, essentially imagining a world of where there was a bigger left wing backlash to the financial crisis than there actually was. And you get this real sense of the camaraderie of the organization and why the organization ticks. And a lot of it comes down to Perfidia and who she is and the choices that she makes throughout those first 40 minutes of the movie, really kind of set up where the rest of the film goes from there, for better or worse in a lot of cases for each character. But RJ, what were your thoughts on the opening of it?
Sorry, propulsive. That's all. It's just like it just starts
Mhm.
immediately, doesn't stop. I mean, the fact that you get the break in between the acts which is one of the best parts, I think, of the movie. They're it's like nonstop, and so much of it happens. I've mentioned this in the text to you guys, but in contrast to most like action movies, almost all of the not almost all, but like a majority of the action in the first part happens during the day. Like the car
Mhm.
chases, the robberies, the
Mhm.
explosions. Like it's very much like daytime. Like you don't see a lot of car chases during the daylight hours, and the
Right.
second act too. There's like a lot that happens during the day, which I think is cool because it's like a different. I think we expect these kinds of movies for like all the crazy shit to happen at night, and it's just like that was just one thing I noticed. But um, yeah, I mean the way that it ends is so like it's almost its own little narrative arc, in
This
a
beginning
short.
part,
Yeah, and it's in
yeah,
in a
yeah,
short period of time, which is hard to do in that it's kind of like wrapped up, in a
yeah.
really interesting and convincing way after however long it is. It's just like, okay, I get that we're like, this is the end of that chapter,
I hadn't really
which I
thought
think is
about
hard to do.
that. Yeah, that's a really good point. It's almost like each section has like a beginning, middle, end, which is so, so cool. When I was watching it again last night, I realized the score is so amazing. Johnny Greenwood, obviously incredible. But in that beginning section, Perfidia is on top of this overpass looking at the detention center, and she's walking. And there are moments that the music is perfectly timed with the way she'll move her head, and it happens again at multiple moments in the movie. That is so, because the music is so unsettling and it's very agitated in that section and very uh, stressful, but the way that he's able to time it with their bodies, it almost makes it feel like there's this determination, like it's like going to happen the way that it's going to happen. I don't know, it's beautiful, and I didn't notice that the first time, but the score is really incredible and really important, I think, to the beginning of the film especially.
Yeah, and the score, I mean, I feel like everything that we say about this, we can then go down a rabbit hole for 35 minutes. But I mean, the score, Johnny Greenwood, as you mentioned, from Radiohead, who has scored a number of Paul Thomas Anderson movies, I think every since There Will Be Blood,
Mhm.
does just such an incredible job of adding additional adrenaline to aspects of this movie,
Mhm.
but doing it in a way where you notice the score, but it also feels a part of the movie in and of itself. He took a lot of inspiration from the Pakula movie Clute, which I watched a couple weeks ago, and that movie
Love.
is filled with great movie. And that movie is filled with like wood blocks and weird off rhythm, a melodic keyboard, just lines that kind of go by like a like, and then they don't repeat themselves, but they all sound aligned. It's very cool stuff. And that throughout this movie just like keeps the adrenaline going. I mean, I think this first part of the movie, there's been I think of any controversy around this movie, the first part of this movie has had that controversy where in which the character of Perfidia is such a proud radical and so strong, but then she goes against everyone and she just leaves and she's gone for the remainder of the movie. Do you see an argument to be had that this is a character that should have remained, or do you think that her exit adds more power and more strength to the movie overall, Meg?
I think, the controversy about her character and whether it's exploitative at all as well. To me, I felt like she was really painted very three-dimensionally and also allows a Black woman to be powerful and sexual and conflicted with her ambition in a way that I think is anyone should be able to be viewed that way. But I think that by removing her from the story, it allows the kind of emotional heart of the story to crack open because Perfidia is all action. And the heart of this story is actually the relationship and the love between Bob and Willa, between this father and this daughter. That is what this story is really about. It's about trust and love and what makes someone a parent and what makes a relationship real as opposed to just who you're biologically born to. And I think that with Perfidia removed, it allowed that world to become richer and more tightly drawn together. And, the relationship would have been so different between Willa and Bob if Perfidia had been there still. So I think it was really crucial to the story. I don't know. What do you think, RJ?
I agree with what you said, except that I think that that Willa actually is kind of a stand-in for her mom in a lot of ways in the second act, especially as the
Mm.
action gets
Mhm.
going. Like I
Yeah, I
think
could see
she
that.
doesn't she's maintained on the screen through that kind of connection, I think. Especially the second time through.
But she's different than her
Yeah,
in
yeah,
that
definitely.
she
Definitely different
seems to
from her.
have a bigger heart,
Yeah,
like a
for sure.
bigger or be not a bigger heart, be drawn emotionally to the people around her more than her mom maybe was. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a really cool read. And I hadn't thought about that, but that there's an interesting thing he seems to be saying throughout this movie that I think if you can just turn this into a movie about parents and their kids and
Yeah.
how you inspire the next generation and um how your successes and your failures are going to shape the next generation whether you like it or not. You can see really through the Willa character what Perfidia has passed down, what Bob has passed down, in a way that is gonna make her life better, make her stronger, but also what they've passed down that's going to burden her. Um, Looking at part 2, so the movie goes through this transition around 40, 45 minutes in, and we move to 16 years later. They're now living off the grid in the sanctuary city of Bacton Cross. Bob has become a paranoid drug addict. He is protective of Willa, who has grown into a self reliant and spirited teenager. Through his vehement anti-immigration efforts, Stephen Lockjaw has become a colonel and a prominent figure in the U.S. security agencies. He's invited to join the Christmas Adventurers Club, which is a secret society of far-right white supremacists. Stephen hunts for Willa to cover up his interracial relationship, which would be a big problem with regards to him being allowed into this far-right white supremacist organization. He hires an indigenous body hunter, Avante Q, who captures Bob's comrade Howard Somerville, triggering a distress signal to the remaining French 75, who then realize that there is a chance that they are going to be attacked once again by the U.S. government. Under the guise of an immigration and drug enforcement operation, Stephen dispatches his troops to Backton Cross to find Bob and Willa. Deandra, a trusted member of the French 75, rescues Willa before her school dance is raided, and Stephen's men attack Bob's home while he is high. Big theme of the movie. He escapes through a tunnel and calls the French 75 for help, but is unable to remember the password. He seeks out Willa's karate teacher and community leader, Sergio St. Carlos, who evacuates a stream of immigrants through a hidden tunnel. Fleeing with Sergio's students across the rooftops, Bob falls and is arrested. Meanwhile, Deandra brings Willa to a convent of revolutionary nuns where she learns the truth about her mother's betrayal. So this part of the movie kind of takes us from that fascinating intro into the heart of it. And this is where we see Bob and Willa's relationship and how closely aligned Bob is to Willa's safety, and how concerned he is, but how also he is now 16 years past this pretty exciting revolutionary period in his life. And he is really just kind of waking up, smoking some pot, watching Battle of Algiers. Who among us is that not like, really does a good job of like showing how peaceful and calm it could be to live in the backwaters of California, up north in the woods while just watching movies and getting stoned all day. But the past comes back to haunt everyone. And so during this period in time, we have a couple of extended tracking shot action scenes through Sergio's storefront that turns into this like fascinating underground railroad for immigrants in America. You also get the fear that Lockjaw has because of his past relationship and the ambition that he has. And then now you're starting to get where Willa is different from the remainder of the French 75 and this world she's been raised in. It's going to dominate much of her life, but is also not necessarily where she's at. I'm curious from this part of the movie, what hit you guys the most as we're moving through the story, still with background information, but also as action is transpiring? What was kind of the most affecting part of the middle part of the movie for you guys? RJ, how about we start with you?
Well, I mean, first of all, the first time we see Willa as a 16-year-old is one of the most awesome parts of the movie, when she's in the studio with Sensei and Dirty Work is played. It's just like,
Yes.
it's just awesome.
So
If-
good.
And if you watch it again, or if you pay attention, which I did a better job of the second time, like her breathing with the movie with the song is like, it's just awesome. I mean, the whole thing is totally, it just totally works perfectly. That part is awesome. There's so many things in the second part that just revolve around her being really pretty amazing at acting. But yeah, I mean, I think like again, it's like another propulsion into action, I mean, the part when she's about to go to the dance and the kids come in the car, and my friend Sam, who probably will listen to this at some point, he's the only person I know who's seen this more than 2 times. He just keeps texting our other chain, "What's up, homie?" like every 3 hours. Because that part of the movie is just it's so great.
So funny.
It's so great, and it's so much funnier. Like the more times you see it, the funnier it gets. But yeah, I mean, like the whole thing, it just kind of like, it's like sort of ridiculing Leo is, he's ridiculing like the pretentiousness of the resistance movement while trying to figure out how to like get the basic information. I mean, there's so many great. It's impossible to cover everything, but the one thing I wanted to say, like, that I noticed the first time, and then everything was a little bit more emotionally powerful, I thought, the second time. But when she's before the action starts in the second part, when she's sitting in the backyard and there's all like the old toys in the yard, like that she probably played with when she was younger, and she's 16 now, and it's sort of like you have these kind of remnants of what it was probably like for Bob to raise a daughter without, by himself for the past 15 years. But you don't see that part, but you see that in a few things, including like photos on the wall, but also like there's these old like swing set kind of play structure in the yard, which we all have probably had to take those down at some point and throw them out or give them away or something. And it's like sort of an interesting way of portraying the fact that Bob has been through this parenting journey by himself, for the past 15 years, which I thought is kind of a cool little set piece.
Yeah, and that he's been able to protect her easier, and that is becoming more and more challenging. And you see that when the car pulls up with, who is this? You allowed them to do this? They're allowed to come here? You said they could? What is this? Is this a red car? Like, he's trying to find things that are wrong with it, but it's not. Yeah. This is, to me,
He can't handle the normalcy of that.
He can't handle
which is
it.
an
Yeah.
amazing add to it. Yeah.
Yeah, this to me is when, you see the brilliance of Leonardo DiCaprio, this whole section, because the hilarity and the frenetic energy and the messiness that he brings to these scenes diffuse the tension of the most stressful parts of this movie. And that's something that I think this phone call, it sets off that section. And to me, it's so funny because, PTA is also making fun of the wokeness of a lot of this, because this character is like Comrade Josh on the phone. He's telling him he's getting triggered, and you see Leo constantly kind of pushing up that kind of middle-aged, potentially like boomerish vibe of like not understanding, and then people pushing back on him when he's in a real crisis mode. And I think that the phone call series, which, knowing as it's coming up when you're watching that, it makes it 25 times more funny. And also him trying to find a place to plug in his phone is just, to me, the best. Like, how he's constantly looking for an outlet, and like that feeling of stress, and how that's balanced by Benicio, there's a lot of press on how he actually rewrote this whole part of the movie to have them go through the house and meet everyone, and this sense of just ownership that he brought to the character, and how much that adds to the movies, and their kind of like buddy film of drinking Modelo's and, being in a car together, and like they have such an energetic mismatch that is really powerful and really moves so much of this part of the movie. This is my favorite part of the movie. I think because of what you're saying, RJ, there's like this emotional undertone to it, to what's going on with Willa, and as she's kind of learning about her mom, and as she's kind of realizing like what this really was, and all this time when she thought her dad was just paranoid, like it's actually a real thing. And then there's this hilarity of what Bob's going through, and in an almost cartoonish way. I think his fall through, when he falls off the building and falls through a tree, it is like a cartoon. And it's the way that PT is able to do that in a realistic film is something I can't get over it. It's incredible.
Yeah, and Brian, I just want to add just one of the like kind of the old man things here is just like how he's like not able to keep up with the skateboarders, they and like
Yeah.
every
I love
PTA
that.
movie, it's so every scene is just every shot in this movie is perfect, I think. I mean, it's kind of stunning when you think about it. But when the skateboarders first come up to the car when they're driving and like hold on to the car as they're going down, he's like, meet me at the thing. And then they're like, the skateboarders are like the definition of these like, youth that can figure shit out, and they're like, they go, and then like by the time Leo's supposed to like be jumping across the building, like he's, he can barely like get up the ladders. And I mean, it's just like, it's so great. It's such a great way of showing that like revolutionaries aren't, what they used to be, which I think is cool.
Yeah, and the passage of time and what time does to you, and like the ways it sneaks up on you in ways that you still think, oh, I can just jump up and do this again. Like, this is the lifestyle I can jump back into. I mean, I think this is the part of the movie where I realized like I was watching something very different than what I was being sold, and I was much happier with what I was watching, because this is, I think it speaks to, I don't want to get too meta, but it speaks to like a larger issue within the film industry right now, that I think if you sold this movie as what it is, which is a father-daughter relationship about the generational chasm and trying to teach the younger generation what you think is right, even though things have changed, and what you think is right may not may no longer be what is right. Um, and that communication, I don't think that sells a lot of tickets. I think PTA, Leonardo DiCaprio, Benicio del Toro, leftist revolutionaries in 2025 sells a lot of tickets, rightly so. But like, what makes me love this movie and more than I could have imagined going in is the story is ultimately about a father who has given his entire life to his daughter, and by doing so has kind of stopped keeping up with the times and is now only 15, 16 years later than where he was at, which isn't really that far gone. But so much has changed, you know. I mean, I was 16 years ago, I was 24 years old. I don't think I could relate to a 24-year-old at this point in time. Like, there we're just we consume news, we see the world so differently than, you know, in that time frame, even though like I can close my eyes and remember exactly who I was at that point in time. So much of time has passed. And within that, then you get these amazing PTA film, you know, the cinematography is incredible, the introduction of the Benicio character and what he has done to, like you said, Meg, that kind of buddy cop buddy comedy type of approach where one guy is super over the top, super, you know, type A, really just like frenetic, and the other guy's like, chill out, bro, like we're gonna get through this, it's a process, you just have to work your way through it with me. Those two
Wait.
things, ocean waves, playing offense, playing defense, combined with like, yeah, the sneaking it in there, this from the left critique of wokeism in this phone call where it's just like, dude, I just need you to trust who I am and just give me the password and everything's going to be okay. And this guy on the other end who's, you know, like, A, I'm not going to give that to you, and B, you're offending me by asking me in the way that you are. It's a little bit over aggressive. That is such a commentary on where we are at right now and where we're at with left culture and wokeism in 2025 and what does it actually still mean. All
And
of those comments. Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sorry, but it's really like maybe inappropriate for me to say this, but like that when he talks about being on the stolen, in between the stolen lands of like three different tribes, like where he is, when he's like, where are you, tell me where you are, and he's like, I'm in between the stolen lands, and then he like mentions like three different Native American tribes, like stolen lands. I just thought that was like the best, like it was just like a great little detail to throw in there, because that's like where America is now, you know, like whether you like it or not. And that's just like
Yeah.
it's a
Everywhere
funny
is,
detail.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a funny detail, and it's something that I think if you watch this movie in 10, 15, 20 years, it will bring you back to 2025 in a very
Yeah.
important way. Um, yeah, and it speaks to one of the larger brilliances of this movie. As we go way over time, I apologize to my co-host, but we still have one more section to get through, and we're all saying a lot of things. So, like, this isn't just me. But as we get into, you know, um, you see a lot of movies that you're like, what year did that come out? 1975. But the movie's not really about 1975. This is a movie that is about 2025 America. And the fact that he was able to nail that, making this movie over the last 2 years and have it come out this year, is just one of the things that I think is going to like blow people away long term.
And he started writing this movie 20 years ago, which is just so
20
wild
years
to me.
ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I want to just note as we move into the third part here. I mean, for me, the thing that gets me about the second part is it really roots the story in the domestic relationship between Bob and Willa. This is really just about a dad trying to get his daughter back and the love that he has for her, however misguided his attempts at showing his love are. One of the things that also sets this part of the movie and sets us as we move towards the end is that there is a bigger story here. The Christmas Adventures organization is positioned here as an absurdist but real organization that is committed to, what does he say? He wants to get rid of all the
I'm going to
uh
purify.
but
Oh,
he
the
wants to get rid of the
crazies.
punks, the crazies,
Yeah.
the
Punk
imbeciles,
trash.
whatever.
There's
Punk
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 trash.
trash.
trash. You get a real sense of like the cultural divide and almost how simply we could step back from the precipice that we're on right now. If everyone kind of looked in the mirror and was like, okay, I'm saying a few things that are a little bit crazy. You're saying a few things are a little bit crazy. Let's just like find a middle ground here again.
Brian, can I just say
Because yeah,
the line that he says is, "We got to find the dangerous lunatics, haters, and punk trash, and stop them. No more
the
lunatics."
use of haters,
Yeah.
Yes, so great.
I feel like is something I don't think people call each other haters as much
No.
anymore, but like internet slang from the late 2000s and early 2010s firmly roots you in like calling someone a hater. And I
Yeah,
feel like that is like that's aimed at our generation to
it's also
understand.
something that Trump. It's also something that Trump says.
His
Yeah.
his cultural references tend to be 10 to 15 years
Yeah.
They're
behind the times.
dated.
So
They're
yeah,
dated
that
for sure.
works.
I'd also just have to comment on the name, the Christmas Adventurers Club. His ability to make you laugh at the scariest people in this movie is maybe one of my favorite things about this film. And every single time that name was mentioned or someone said it, I just like died laughing, and how they're like, praise Saint Nick, and this
Yeah.
just idea that they would use Christmas in this way is just, it's so good. It's so good and hilarious. So sorry, Brian,
Yeah.
continue.
No, it's great. It's great. I agree. And it sets uh, it toes this line between absurdism and reality in a way
Yeah.
that makes it almost that much more real. So part 3, as we move through this movie, the Christmas adventurers uncover evidence of Stephen's relationship with Perfidia and send a member, Tim Smith, to eliminate him and Willa. Uh, Raiding the convent where Willa is at, Stephen forcibly tests Willa's DNA while holding her as hostage, confirming that she is his biological daughter and thus making him ineligible for the Christmas Adventures Club. He therefore decides to kill her instead of freeing her. Sergio, meanwhile, arranges for Bob to escape custody and drives him to the convent, throwing him from the car before being pulled over by the police. Hotwiring in another car, Bob reaches the convent but fails to kill Stephen with Sergio's sniper rifle. Stephen hires Avanti to dispose of Willa, who refuses since she is a teenager. He also refuses because it seems like the people who are going to kill her are extremely racist and he gets offended by them, which is yet another layer to this overall movie. Stephen changes the job to just take her to a far right militia instead. Tim then tracks Stephen down, shoots him in the face with a shotgun, causing him to crash his car and leaves him for dead. Avanti delivers Willa to the militia, but then after a change of heart, frees her and is killed, gunning them down. Willa then takes Avanti's car and pistol and is chased by Tim until she lures him into a crash by exploiting a blind summit. She shoots him dead, which when he does not know the revolutionary countersign. Bob then finds her on the highway. She points her gun at him, demanding the countersign, to which he exhaustedly does. The two tearfully reunite and drive away. A badly scarred Stephen is seemingly welcomed into the Christmas adventures after lying that he was reverse raped by Perfidia, but is gassed to death and cremated shortly after his initiation. Returning home with Willa, Bob gives her a letter of hope from Perfidia, where she apologizes for her actions and vows to reunite with her family in the future, and his blessing as she sets off to join a protest hours away in Oakland, which gives us an excellent closing to the movie of "Be safe, I won't." So this movie does a great job of wrapping up a lot of where these characters have been, the momentum that is being driven for these characters as they move towards the conclusion. Um, do you guys think that we got all of the bows tied up here properly in this movie? Do you think that the conclusion of this movie does a solid job of taking all of these ideas, all of this action, all this uncertainty throughout the movie, all this intensity, and bringing us to a conclusion by the end, Meg?
Absolutely. I think that's one of the impressive things about it, and it gives you the kind of emotional, kind of like gut punch that you want. I don't think gut punch is the right word, but when she goes and hugs her dad after she reads the letter, that was when I was started to cry on second viewing, because you see in that everything, all the hopes that she had for her mom, and realizing that her mom is actually a real person and is still out there, and you see her realizing like how much she appreciates her dad and all he's done for her in that moment. And it's just such a beautiful kind of emotional ending to the story. This story that is so much more of that, so much funnier. And I think the car chase, I just want to comment on that because I've never seen anything like that. I've never seen a car chase that's on, like you said, RJ, in the daytime. That was really cool. I didn't really realize that until you said it. But also it's on a straight road. Like most car chases are like circular and they don't see each other because they're going around things, but this one is just up and down, and when you're watching it, it feels like you're in an IMAX or something because of the way he's got the camera and how it goes up and down in this way that I've never really seen anything like that. And there is such a he places the camera like in front of the car and then also behind the car at times. So there's this sense of like both being in front of the chase and behind it that I found absolutely fascinating and want to learn more about how he did that because it's really, really cool. But I think that the way that how he has a lockjaw also like not dying in that moment, but then coming back and having that the Christmas Adventurers Club kind of deliver the ending for him, to me was like super fitting. And of course, the ending needle drop is absolutely perfect. I mean, RJ, when
Mm.
you walked out, I know you had like a really big reaction to that. And I was explaining that to my daughter last night about why that needle drop is so intense. And she's 15 and she's Chase Infinity's age in the movie, and seeing explaining to her that this is what Paul Thomas Anderson thinks an American girl is, and this is what the hope of America is, because she was explaining that she thought the movie was sort of depressing. And I was saying that I thought it was really hopeful because even though there's all these horrible things in this country right now and have always been here, we still have people trying to change things, and there's still the future, the younger generation that will do it better than we did. And I found the movie really hopeful and the ending incredibly hopeful.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just want to, can we just talk about the music real quick? Because
Yeah.
aside from the great, songs, which as Big Picture said, that he doesn't usually go like deep into the crates. We're not getting like, we're not getting
Deep cuts.
obscure tracks from obscure artists with Paul Thomas Anderson, which is fine. But the the Johnny Greenwood, score is so much of it is it's one note over and over, and then it's layered around one note. And I saw like a TikTok video explaining this, and it's basically almost that entire score is one note, and then things happen around that note, which is interesting as like jam band fans and jazz fans. That's like kind of the point of improvisational music. There's like
That's
a
amazing.
repetitive thing, and then you build around it depending on the situation. But one of the things the second time I was much more emotional leading up to the last scene, partially because the music when the trackers start syncing is like you kind of like don't notice it the first time, or at least I didn't, because there's just so much else going on. But when you hear the melody that it's playing at the same time, like when they're near each other, it's like so amazing how that ties together like the entire soundscape of the whole movie in a way that's just like so powerful. And man, the whole end of it is just, you said everything about like the car chases. And I think like when a car chase built around repetition is just so hard to imagine if you think about it. Like it's just the same thing keeps happening. They're just going up and down, as opposed to like,
Yeah.
car chases, you like go over like bridges or through an alley, or then you like take a sharp
Through like
turn and then,
European cities where
yeah,
where
like
everything's changing. Yeah.
it's just like undulating landscape over and it's crazy. But the only thing I want to say about the ending, I do have like a one minor plot question about the ending, but the last scene when they're talking about the letter, the way that when he asks her about the letter, and then she says, "Is it for you? Or is it for me?" And the way that both Leo and her face are like so intensely emotional and authentic in that moment, it's like to me, it's like the best part of the whole movie, because you
Yeah.
see them both expressing themselves in this way, but they're also like so connected to each other, and you see them both like trying to manage their emotions in the moment. And then of course like the end when she walks out of the door, it's just, man, it's a beautiful, amazing ending. And
She has
also,
a
like,
huge career ahead of herself, like
yeah,
Chase Infinity.
I
She's
mean,
absolutely incredible in this movie.
from her like eyes on the camera at the start of the second act when Dirty Work starts to the end when she's like the close-ups of her are just there. She's awesome. She does
Yeah.
it perfectly.
The
Um,
silhouette too. He has her in silhouette a lot, like right
yeah.
up against like Sean Penn or the Nun, and it's beautiful. Yeah.
The only thing I want to say is that the end when he's trying to figure out how to take a selfie on his phone, it just reminded me of the part which we didn't mention when 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 Benicio del Toro picks him up from the hospital, and he's like, "Let's take a selfie," and then gives him a beer. Like in the car, they're like trying to escape. He's like, "Let's take a selfie," and then he hands him a Modelo. It's
Yeah.
just so great. It's just like those little moments just make it so much more rich, you know. But what an amazing ending, and she is a fucking phenomenal actor. I was like so moved the second time.
Yeah, I share a lot of your sentiments. I mean, the car chase was one of the most remarkable things I've ever seen in a movie. It reminds me, and it's one of the things I love about this movie and what PTA is trying to do here by filming this in VistaVision, by telling kind of a anti-revolutionary, revolutionary story. He's telling stories the way that you experience movies from the 50s, 60s, and 70s, where you don't necessarily need every character to align with this larger great cause that answers this great big question around stability in the world and how we move forward and progress and all this sort of stuff. These characters are just people and they just need to exist as people. And so like this car chase scene is like what you would kind of pay for in a movie 50, 60 years ago. You would expect, to have some action towards the end of the movie, and you're not expecting like everything to blow up and the entire world to explode. Like you're expecting a car chase. Like this is a hard thing to film. It's a hard thing to act. It's a hard thing to stunt. And when it looks really good, it looks really good. And I love that he just kept this as simple and to the ground, where the movement of the road is the thing that is driving us forward here. And the cars are they're modern cars, but they're almost like cars kind of like that are updates on these 50s, 60s cars that, kind of muscle cars from America's past. And so you really get the sense in the car chase scene that PTA is tapping into the way that people used to film movies, and almost this kind of like begging the question of like, isn't this exciting enough? Can't we get back to like a really
Mm,
good story with action like this that isn't all of New York has exploded due to a terrorist bomb, and now like everyone's living in
right.
nuclear fallout. Like, let's just tell these small stories. And then along with that, to the conversation we're having about hope, like I think so much of the last 10 minutes, and I'm really excited to experience it again after knowing the way I feel, but also probably being surprised by things the second time around, is this sense that, and I think this speaks to Paul Thomas Anderson as the parent of teenage daughters. I think this speaks to all of us for having kids and for where their lives are going to go, is this sense of like, you can try to prepare your kids for the realities and the horrors of the world and the importance of having something to believe in, but there's nothing you can do about it. They're gonna have to experience it themselves, and they're gonna experience it in their own way, and they'll rely on you in some cases, but, like, it's their life, and I think about it, in ups and downs I've gone through in my life, like, my parents, had they known at 8 years old that I would experience that, they would have been horrified to ever leave me out of the house, but, like, the reality is I had to go live my own life, and I had to, do what I'm going to do and, you know, highs and lows of whatever that's going to be. And so as a parent, you kind of have to just like accept and allow that this is what's going to happen with your kids here. And you see that with Bob towards the end of this, where he has tried everything um, to protect Willa, to make her life not like the life that he and he and Perfidia were going to give her. Um, but at the end of the day, once she's been exposed to the reality of what her life is, there's a reason why she is going to continue pushing at the edges, and she's going to continue doing it herself. And is she going to solve everything that Bob and Perfidia couldn't? No. in 15 years, she's going to probably be in a very similar position where she is looking at the younger generation and realizing what she accomplished and also what she hasn't accomplished. And that passing of the generation, you do what you can, and then at a certain point, you just have to turn this over. That's such a ever present theme right now that I think is full of hope, full of honesty, full of sadness, but also, again, full of hope. There's hope in the next generation that if we can give them enough information, they'll crack the code a little bit further and push us a little bit further along. And I think it's the last thing I'll say. You commented earlier, RJ, about the similarities between this and Eddington, and I think that there's almost no movies I can think of over the last 15 years that both came out in essentially subsequent months that comment on modern America better than these movies do, but in completely opposite ways.
Yeah.
Ari Aster's Eddington is we are completely fucked because we are addicted to these phones and technology and whatever is in them, and the ideas and the fantasies and the information and all this sort of stuff that comes out of them is one way that we are living. The other way is in One Battle After Another, where we get this sense of human to human, face to face interaction, communicating with people, sharing highs, lows, taking risks, even if those risks don't necessarily work out. That is living, that is life. And I think that this is no fault to Eddington, which up until I saw this movie was the best movie I'd seen in 2025 and will at this point in time still be my number 2 of 2025. There's nothing like the hope that you leave One Battle After Another with, and that sense that no matter how hard it is, no matter how hard it could get, there is still a lot worth living for. That's just spewed right across this movie in a really profound way.
Yeah,
and
the only thing I wanted to say, sorry, RJ, about Eddington
Yeah.
is that I think Eddington feels like we're all to blame, and One Battle After Another feels like we all have the power to make it better. And I think that to me was like the big difference.
Yeah, I like that.
I think the ending also, like, Joaquin Phoenix's character and Sean Penn's character end up in the same kind of place at the end, but they have different fates. So like,
Oh yeah, you're
you can
right.
kind of, you can kind of kill off the bad guy and have hope, or the bad guy actually becomes like the representation of where America is going in Eddington. So it's
So
like,
true.
those characters are so similar in a lot of ways. They're very different, obviously, but they're similar in a lot of ways too. So I was thinking about that, just how they end up in the same place at the end, but they have totally different fates. And I think that goes to what you were saying, Brian, in terms of like, can we do
Yeah.
anything about it or not?
And they're both disfigured. There's actually so many parallels. That's fascinating.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. That's such a good way to put it. Yeah, I mean, I think, the hope and the sense that, like, I think this is a really important thing. You're never going to solve all the problems. And I think that this is part of the challenge of where we're at right now from a societal standpoint. Not to open a huge can of worms as we're closing out a podcast, but like, this sense that, like, well, everything has to be solved and then we can move forward.
Yeah.
And that comes from both sides of the conversation right now. This movie almost showcases that it's going to be messy no matter what, and you're never going to solve everything you set out to solve, and the next generation is not going to solve everything that they set out to solve, and some of the things that they do are going to contradict things that you thought you were doing well, and that messiness is kind of the point, because the love at the heart of this between Bob and Willa, just the simple fact that Bob gives Willa a chance to figure out who she is, what her path is, and that she makes a choice of where she's going to go. That's really all the job Bob needs to do. And I think if we can simplify that to a certain degree, maybe here in the real world, we'll feel a little bit better. But I don't know. Maybe we need to go back into PTA world again. Last thing, we do this every episode. The Letterbox comp to our ratings. This is currently has out of 8.9 thousand reviews on Letterbox. This movie has, which is crazy. There's only 8.9 thousand who have reviewed it.
Yeah.
961,000 have watched it, but it has an average rating of 4.4 stars. Do you think that this is higher or too high or too low?
This is a 5-star movie for me. Absolutely 5-star. I wouldn't change a thing about it. I want to see it again. I've already seen it twice. I don't know what else you can do for this to make a better movie than this. 5
Yeah.
stars for me.
I think 4.4 seems right. Like in terms of the average, it would be. I don't know what the highest rated film on Letterboxd is, but anything over 4.4 is like pretty perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
really high. It's definitely his highest of any of his. I think there are like 3
his
that are like
high-
4.2.
It's his highest grossing movie of all time.
What is it gross
Yeah.
so far? Do you know of him?
Yeah, 123 million worldwide.
So we are getting, so this is a really important question for it. And
Yeah.
again, I don't want to open another can of worms as we're already 25 minutes over our stated hard stop here. Apologies to my co-host.
So us.
But this was a $170 million movie, which was the highest he's ever been given. He was originally given 125 million, and then it ballooned to 170. So if we were on track to make at least 150, I think we're in a good place where PTA has a chance to make another movie like this. This has been a big question around this movie: is will he be given this amount of money again? I certainly hope so. 5 stars is my rating for this. My favorite movie of the year.
Yeah, same.
One of the best movies of the overall decade. I think that we're in a really, really special place with a movie like this coming out right now. And if you have not seen this, and even if we didn't spoil everything for you, I definitely encourage you to go and watch this. If you have seen it, shoot us a message, shoot us some tweets, some texts, some voicemails. Let us know your thoughts.
Shoot us some
We'll
tweets.
You sound like Bob at the end of this movie, Brian.
Sound like Bob Ferguson here.
Brian, sorry, can I just correct something that I said earlier?
Sure, please.
Okay, There Will Be Blood is 4.5, so it's not his highest.
Okay.
On Letterboxd.
That makes sense. Yeah.
We will be back with another Blockbuster Card episode before the end of this month, I believe. Maybe early November. We got to figure out timing and everything here because we are going to be doing a Blockbuster Card library card mashup of The Shining and The Shining. So keep an eye out for that on your schedules. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for your time here. I'm hoping to finish The Brutalist again in the next week so I can watch The Shining. But this has always been fun, and I look forward to our next episode here. Hope you guys all have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.